see everybody. So I'm Reverend Maurene Bishop, and I'm going to talk about relationships, because relationships have been one area of my life that I have struggled with. So I thought, what better than, you know, the old saying, you need to learn what you can teach best, you know least, or something. Paraphrasing. So I have found that the more attention you put on relationships, the more love you will have to give and receive, especially with your relationship with the divine. So we teach God is in you, God is through you, God is operating as you. You are the divine in human form. This last month, Reverend Kate and I have been talking about different spiritual practices, and she introduced the idea, I think, of a tool belt or a toolbox and our metaphysical tools that we use to improve our lives. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of those. So our talks are also recorded, and you can find them on Facebook and YouTube. So the term relationship is defined as a state of being interconnected. So we talk about relationships because we're all interconnected, we're all intertwined with everything on this planet, including the earth, including the weather, including the animals and the plants and each other. Relationships are a reflection of our unity with spirit. We call it the thing itself. All relationships start with our relationship and belief about ourselves. So do you really believe that you're one with God? Do you believe that spirit resides within you? Do you believe that you're beautiful?
I always believe that.
From here, you're all gorgeous, especially when you're smiling. You know, a healthy, loving relationship with another person is grounded on a loving, healthy relationship with God. So, do you worship the light within? When you can love yourself completely, you can love another person. When you see the divinity in yourself, then you see the divinity in all. God is synonymous with love, and love heals everything, all wounds. When all people know the divinity within, then we could have a new world order. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, "The latent divinity within us stirs our imagination, and because of its insistent demand, it impels and compels our growth. It is back of every invention and will, when permitted, create a new world in which war, poverty, sickness, and famine will have disappeared." He also goes on to say that Jesus located God in his soul, and so complete was that realization that he was unable to find a place where the being of Jesus began and the being of God left off. You know, Jesus said, "You're the light of the world," you know. You are this divine light, so let your light shine. I want to remind you of a couple of metaphysical tools: gratitude, forgiveness. Now, we've all talked about gratitude and forgiveness before, but those tools and speaking your word is what I'm going to talk a little more about. Because think of gratitude as a paintbrush in your toolkit, and you're able to paint everything so it's amazingly lighter. You give gratitude for everything, and it brightens it up. And think of forgiveness kind of as a screwdriver, but you use it to unscrew all the screws you have screwed in that keep you from enjoying life. So relationships. I have a dog. So speaking of relationships, here's a story about a furry friend. A friend of mine, her grandmother had a dog who was almost as old as she was, well, in dog years. The two were inseparable. It was a very close, emotional, and loving relationship. My friend said at a recent family gathering, well, you know, we're going to have to put that dog down when Grandma dies. The dog looked up. The dog was so good to Grandma after that, just taking care of her. And one time, Grandma was a little slow to wake up from her nap, and the dog was right there, pounced on her, barking, wake up, wake up. So we all have relationships, some with the furry kind, with people, animals, environment. We're all entwined. You know, we all play roles. And I'll talk a little bit about archetypes. You know, archetype are these roles like mother, father, joker, victim. These are archetypes that we use in life. And we all have titles, you know, spouse, mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, aunt, uncle, sister, brother, twin, if you're fortunate, cousin, godmother, godfather, BFFs. I have a couple of BFFs. That means best friend forever. Doctors, dentists, employers, employees, we all have titles. We're all interwoven. My irrigation repair guy who was here this week, you know, I have this working relationship with him, which is to make sure my trees and my plants continue to thrive. And the utility company, you know, I was thinking about the utility company. They keep the lights on and I pay them. That's a really good relationship for me. So we exist in these different roles, but we are all one because God is in everything. We're all one with it. Now, how we treat others is a reflection of how we treat ourselves, which in turn is how we treat the divine within us. Now, Carolyn, I think it's pronounced Miss Mice, M-Y-S-S. She's a New Thought writer. I bet Jan has a couple of her books out there, but she said Carl Jung, who was the Swiss psychotherapist, coined the collective unconscious. He said that all archetypes live in a collective unconscious through which all souls are connected. Myths, legends, prototypes, and I mentioned before, hero, father, joker, mother. And knowledge of these archetypes helps us to understand why certain relationships have been necessary in our life, painful or joyful. Everyone has, and everything has a role, good and bad, but it's all God. So, like a mother or a father, you're giving birth. You're giving birth to the divine. But that doesn't happen when we think of ourselves as the S word or the D word. No, I mean stupid or dumb. So, we're not seeing in the divine relationship if we judge other people. So we have to forgive and give gratitude and do what we call our special affirmative prayer, which is spiritual mind treatment, to change our thinking, change our life. So if you're not attracting loving relationships into your life, look at your unconscious beliefs, especially around these archetypes and these roles, and also the shoulds. You know what the shoulds are? A friend of mine's son came home from school and he said, "Mommy, do I have something on my shirt?" She said, "I don't see anything." Oh, well, the teacher said there was some should on me. And we do this. We think, well, mothers should do this. Boyfriends should do that, you know. Husbands should do this. We have to let go of that. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson, most of you know who he was, he said, to have a friend, you have to be a friend, which means giving up any of your ego. So we're always reminded in religious science to watch our words, because we know in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, so we create with our word. So pay attention how you use your word. Calling other people names or yourself names doesn't help. So I want to talk to you about some tools for clear communication. The first one is called reflective listening. It's like a mirror. If you've ever done therapy, and some of us have, there is a process where someone speaks and you reflect what they have said or what you think they have said, and you try to clarify it. That's very importantly. It's like having a mirror. You're the mirror for this person. You say, I thought I heard you say, or I think what you mean is X, Y, and Z. The second thing you can do is feeling. You can talk about feeling. How does that feel when I said something? You know, get in touch with the heart. How does that really feel? Apologize if somebody feels hurt by something you said. And you can say, well, facts. The third item, do I have the facts? Am I mistaken here? That happened to me this last week. Allow the other person, or if you're at work, an employee, allow them to speak. And at the end of a conversation, say thank you. It's really easy to say thank you. Allowing everybody to speak can be a problem. I noticed this in business when I was in a meeting. You know, the introverts kind of hold back. They don't say much. The extroverts just jump on everybody else getting their word in. You know, hear me, hear me, hear me. And what you have to do is allow everybody to speak. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of a talking stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, years ago during the harmonic convergence, my brother and I and his friend backpacked up into the Grand Teton Mountains. I was living in Wyoming, and we were at Jenny Lake, which is about 8,000 feet, and we hiked up into the upper, there's a beautiful pasture up in the upper Tetons. We hiked up there. It was August and it snowed on us, but during the harmonic convergence, it was a name given to the world's first synchronized global peace meditation. And it was also a time that you're supposed to speak your word for what you wanted in your life. So we had a talking stick, just a stick, but we passed the talking stick around as we were at the bonfire, and we spoke what we wanted. It was interesting. I didn't know about religious science then. I didn't know how important it was to speak your intention for what you want. And I spoke my word for leaving a job I had in the coal mining industry in Wyoming and go into renewable energy. And within 4 years, I was doing renewable energy from the first winter in Wyoming. You know, most people don't understand this Robert's Rules of Order. They don't understand you have to take your turn to talk. And when I was with my daughter's soccer team, it was like we'd pass the soccer ball around, or something else, you know, that we would have to allow everybody to speak. So the introverts got their day. So, and it can be anything. If you're doing couples counseling, you know, you can use something that is very personal to you, something you love. Maybe it was a Valentine's Day card, and you pass that and let the person speak. So your relationship with the divine controls everything in your life. When you love and cherish the life within, then you can love and cherish everybody else and your animals. So we believe that the divine resides within, and we see it everywhere. And I may have mentioned before that I worked with Mother Teresa in a hospice situation, well, it was called Kaligat in Kolkata, India. But she always used to say, the person you're clothing, the person you're washing, the person you're feeding, that's Jesus in an amazing disguise. And I say, yes, that's the divine, whatever form you want to call it, Atman, you know, Brahma, Buddha. It's an amazing disguise. We're all in this amazing disguise. So I want to tell you a little story about a little boy. I saw this video about 5 years ago. I couldn't find the video again, but as I remember it, it was a little boy who wanted to meet God. And he thought it would be a long trip. So he packed his bag. He had a little backpack, and he put Twinkies, and he put a couple of juice boxes in it, and he started his journey out the front door. And when he had gone about 3 blocks, he went into the park, and he saw an old woman who was sitting on a bench, and she was staring at some pigeons. And the little boy sat down on the same bench, and he opened his backpack. And as he removed and started to open his Twinkies, he noticed the old woman looked at him, and he thought, oh, she looks hungry. So he offered her one of his Twinkies. She gratefully accepted and smiled at him. And her smile was incredible. The boy had never seen such a smile, such gratitude. They sat there for a long while, eating and smiling. And he shared a juice box, but they never said a word. At some point, the boy realized he better get home, so he got up to leave, but before he had gone more than a few steps, he turned around and he looked back at the old woman, and he ran over there and gave her a hug. And she gave him the biggest smile ever. So the little boy walked home, and when he opened the door to his house, just a short time later, his mother was surprised by the look of joy on his face. She said, well, what did you do today, honey, that made you so happy? And he said, I just saw God in the park. She's older than I thought she would be. But she likes Twinkies. Not the end of the story. Now, meanwhile, the old woman, also radiant with joy, returned to her daughter's home. Her daughter had just returned from work, and she saw a look of peace on her mother's face, and she said, Mama, what'd you do today that made you so happy? And she said, I ate Twinkies in the park with God. And you know, he's much younger than I expected. So, you know, sometimes we underestimate the power of a smile or the smallest act. You know, I have a friend, she was my friend. We met when she was 17 and I was 18. And she died right before the pandemic. But that friendship is still here forever.
And that will remain to you for a long, 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 long time.
Yes, my BFF. And I still hear her voice and her laughter. Now, Dennis Merritt Jones, I don't know, some of you know Dennis. He has quite a few books out. He's a New Thought minister. He said, our relationships are the vehicles for our evolution as individuals and as a species. If we are fully conscious, our relationships offer us the clearest view of our own souls because they invite us to look directly into the divine. Now, Ernest Holmes again said, in your desire for betterment, for loving relationships, it's the natural order of things. Your desire is a divine urge, the will of infinite life within you to know itself, to express itself. But relationships can be tough. Now, I found from Proverbs 27:17. It says, as iron sharpens iron, one person sharpens another. Which, it's not always easy. It is not always easy. And I just wanted to mention that ministers like Kate and I, we are licensed to do pastoral care. Somebody misunderstood me and said astral. Pastoral care. We're here, we can do pastoral care. We can't prescribe medicines, and we don't, pastoral care is different than a licensed therapist. We have the same reporting requirements though. We have to mandatorily report if someone wants to hurt themselves or hurt a child. But we have choices. I look at my own parents and the choices they made. They were my example for a relationship. And, after 2 divorces, I got some new examples of relationship. So every relationship has been a teacher. We have choice, and we can choose more wisely now, because we live for the moment today. Now, I'm always joking about Mark Twain, but not today, because he loved his wife. He wrote a lot of, instead of his cynical side, he wrote many loving things about his relationship. And he did write one that was kind of silly, but he said, when you fish for love, bait with your heart, not your brain. So in conclusion, I just want to say that all these things that we can do and practice, be a good listener. Pay attention to these relationships in your life, because the most important thing is before you react, stop, think. I always say, okay, what would Buddha do in this situation? Or, what would Krishna do, what would Jesus do in this situation? Well, calm down. That's what they would do. And so I have learned to use a moment of hesitation before I overreact. And it has helped. So pay attention to your relationships and your word, how you speak your word. And don't use the negative words. So I just want to say, again, use forgiveness. Use forgiveness in all relationships. Forgive the past, let it go. Just like Nancy's reading, let it go, let the past go. Just be here in the present. And give gratitude. Again, where you are, every relationship you've been in, give thanks for it. Give gratitude, knowing you learned from that relationship. So, you're ready for lunch today with the divine? Bring Twinkies.